Hello, and welcome to the Sovereign Collective podcast, where we bring you real, raw truth for your self-empowerment. I'm your host, Sasha Calavoda, and I believe that you can stand on your own 2 feet, but that you don't have to do it alone. I love learning from people who continually strive to raise the bar, to go against mainstream thinking, and who dare to question the general consensus. People who risk being ridiculed or even risk the loss of their professional status as they bravely question the common narratives and challenge the rest of us to expand our minds and to reconsider what we think we already know. Join me in learning how to take control of your health and your mind so that you can have the energy to think more clearly and the confidence to step up and take responsibility for all aspects of your life. We promise to never censor here because I believe you are strong enough to hear the real, raw truth to make up your own mind. If you like what you find here at the Sovereign Collective podcast, then please share with your friends and family. I so appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. And now, on to the show.
Hey guys, just a few things before we get on to this very important second interview with Kelly Kennedy, all about the lymph. Number one, I realized at the end of the interview that I didn't ask a very important question about what does lymphatic congestion look like? What are the symptoms? How would people know this? So that gets tacked on right at the very end in a little chunk. So I didn't bother to try to put it in seamlessly because it just wasn't happening. So just so you know about that. And then we got cut off on that bit. So it just ends abruptly, just so you know that I know that it ends like that. Second of all, she does a lot of visuals with where she's addressing her body when she's talking about different things. So if you want to see the video version of this, it's going to be up on YouTube. Maybe. We inadvertently did talk about the V word a couple of times, so I wouldn't be surprised if I put this up to find the next day that it's been pulled off of YouTube, but if it isn't there, you'll find it on BitChute. So my YouTube channel is Sasha Says, and my BitChute channel is the Sovereign Collective. So that's what I want to talk about this interview. And second of all, for those of you who are on Telegram, my husband and I have started a channel called the Inner Alchemy Dojo, which is a channel dedicated to self-mastery and the art of relationship. And the most important relationship being the relationship with yourself. So right now we have a whole bunch of just free audios and lives that we offer. We have finally joined together because he is a master of helping people get right with themselves. And so if you're feeling like looks like you've got it right on the outside, but the inside world doesn't match the outside world, then this could be really valuable for you. Or just if you're just looking to see how to get to know yourself and figure out why you're here and learn how to be unapologetic in who you are, then this channel could be amazing for you. I know I'm having so much benefit listening to my husband because I don't actually ever get coached by him. I just live the result of his living it. So it's the Inner Alchemy Dojo. It's all free for now, and there will always be free content, but over time we're going to be adding extra offerings to the group. So check it out, Inner Alchemy Dojo. Join the group chat, and then you can get into the channel to hear the lives, and you can comment and ask for content, and we can just form a big community there. It's pretty new. There's 50 some odd people in there at the time of this podcast, and we're looking to see it grow because, it's time to own ourselves in all aspects of our lives, and I think this is an important part of it. And now, enjoy the show with Kelly Kennedy.
Hello, everyone. Sasha here for another interview for the Sovereign Collective podcast, and I am once again met with Kelly Kennedy. Yay! We are going to go more into lymph. The last interview went really fast and really amazing stuff talked about there. And I think it was number 71. So if you want a good intro to Kelly's life and how she came to be what she's doing, and some really fundamental basics about the power of the body to heal, what is lymph, all these things, the importance of lymph, I think that is, we will touch on some of those things, but that's a really great intro interview into this. And now we're going to get into more practical tips. We're going to help you really understand why it is important to daily move your lymphatic system. Because what I find is I'll tell people, okay, let me just show you some really basics. You can touch on some certain areas, do that a couple times a day. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to have a lymph massage in a month or next week or once a month I go. And it's like, okay, but that's not going to make up for the rest of your month. And you have the power to do this like you brush your teeth every day. So why wouldn't you do it? Because it's a really big deal. So Kelly, let me tell you what she's all about. So Kelly Kennedy's career in medicine started with the more allopathic approach, but changed after experiencing several traumatic events that made her realize that good health is more than just taking medications and undergoing surgeries. For the last 27 years, Kelly has dedicated her life to uncovering answers to healing through alternative therapies, including bioregulatory medicine, energy medicine, and somatic work. Kelly is commonly referred to as the lymph queen and is the mind behind energy flow and transformative flow formula, an approach and technique that addresses and restores fascia, lymph, oxygen, water, and energy. She resides in Pennsylvania with her husband Ian and son Silas, seeing clients for the past 19 years at their clinic, the True Wellness Center. And let me tell you, I can tell you that is a thriving clinic because we have been rescheduling this interview for months because Kelly is so busy.
Traveling a lot too. I've been on a lot of retreats in this last helping myself heal after an injury this year that I was working way too hard. And I decided that to listen to my own advice and to take some more time off and to let my body just be and heal because I had broken my elbow and dislocated my shoulder. And while it was healing and I didn't have to have the surgery they told me I would have to have and all that, I was exhausted and I really needed some time. So I took a lot of time off, in all honesty, this summer that I didn't expect taking off. Like, honestly, like 5 weeks I took off, which was a big deal
for you. Yeah.
So in reality, yes, we are busy. And it is also due to the fact that I put myself first, which is lesson number one for everyone to hear, that even as practitioners, and I can tell you with the amount of content that Sasha produces, it's not a light schedule that many of us lead. And as she just commented, like, oh, I'm going to get something done to me next week. You know, I'm going to go get somebody to give me some care, or I'm going to do a liver flush next week, and there's something outside of me, but everything is actually inside of us. And it's the sitting with the uncomfortableness, it's sitting with the pain, it's sitting with the lack of digestion, it's sitting with ourselves, and then starting sounds funny, but starting to touch ourselves and starting to mobilize our lymph and starting to work our fascia and allow our bodies to heal. And I wasn't doing that because I kept doing to try to get my message out instead of watching what was happening to me, witnessing myself and going, hey, you've been on 8 planes in 15 weeks. Calm your little self down. And just calm yourself down. Like, you're trying to heal and you're not giving your body everything that it needs, which is stillness.
Right. And that is the message I think that so many need to hear. And it's hard for people. They get antsy and it's the idea that I should be doing something. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. So yeah, what would this world look like if we all just took care of ourselves? Right?
And that's really going to the lymph. And what we talked about last time, lymph has a lot of emotional components in addition to physical. And it's so practical that no matter what symptom shows up for you, whether it's physical, allergies, mold exposure, gut issues, rashes, maybe it's energetic, maybe it's, I feel off. I don't feel like in my own space. Maybe it's emotional. I'm feeling very highly emotional. I feel very angry or saddened or depressed, or I'm moody, or I'm something along that line. Or maybe it's mental, like I just can't get out of that same old thought pattern. The first thing I would invite everyone to do is take your 2 hands, take these 2 fingers, and look right here up in this termini, in this area that's between your clavicles, and start to just pump it like I teach. Mm-hmm. First, get your body in alignment. Sit up straight, get your feet flat on the ground if you can. Take a breath. You don't have to actively, just deeply, consciously watch your breath. Calm down, be present. Take those 2 fingers and gently just pump. 2, 3, 4. And when I'm saying pump, just so I can get up close and show you what I'm doing, is I'm taking this air, I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's not a squeeze. I'm not trying to get the muscle. Right under the muscle, right under the fascia. Under the skin, before the muscle, under the fascia. And in between as well are these little tiny lymph vessels. And those lymph vessels then move out and get to lymph nodes. And lymph nodes are everywhere we bend. And the end of that journey, because everybody has between 600 and 1,000 of these lymph nodes in the areas we bend, and 20% of them in the neck and 50% in our gut. At the end of that journey is right here in the termini, and that's what dumps into our cardiovascular system. And so it's most important, primarily first, to open up the end, because if you have a long tube that's stuffed, do you try to move the middle? Do you try to move the opposite? You open up the end first and then you squeeze it. It's like a tube of toothpaste. If all the toothpaste is at the end, if it's all caught up at the end, what do we have to do when we get to the end of the toothpaste? We have to squeeze it. I just found these new cool things. They're keys, and you roll your toothpaste. It like saves our toothpaste. Like the best thing I found at Christmas last year. But, you want to get all that. And a lot of people are clogged down in their lower legs. They're clogged down in their guts. They have clogging. And so they want to work that area. But you first must open the cap. And opening the cap is getting these termini open. Now the toothpaste can come out. Now the lymph can come out. Then you work what's next. You work at the very next area, which is your tonsil area. Then you work in your chest area to get the chest open, because lymph is a vacuum and it works under pressure. So if there's a lot of stuff in there, nothing's going to move. If you move the stuff out by applying the motion of the pumping, now you've created an opening that dumped into the cardiovascular system. Now there's a vacuum, there's space. Mm-hmm. Now as I pump the next area, which is my tonsils, and I pump my tonsils, and it moves down all my cervical rest of my lymph nodes, as well as my vesicles. It travels down into these lymph nodes because there's space, and it only goes in one direction. Your lymph can be backed up, but it can't go back flow. Right. So I really want people to understand that. Whether you pump in this direction or you go like this, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Just do it. And we all have time, because we all have 24 hours in one day. And it's how we utilize that. And you're brushing your teeth, you're talking to your husband, you're talking to your friend, you're sitting on the phone, you're sitting in traffic. Take 2 minutes and start pumping your lymph nodes. 5 pumps, again, with spine erect, taking a breath, taking a space. You can be conscious while you're talking to your friend Sasha, having a chat, let's say, having tea. Hey, Sasha, don't mind me. I'm just going to pump my lymph real quick, because I haven't had a chance to do it today. And now that I'm here with you present, I'm really paying attention to you. But I can also, because I've done it so much, because I've watched Kelly's video, that I've memorized the sequence. I don't even think about it. And that I can just pump my lymph nodes with total awareness and allow my lymph to flow. While you're sitting in a traffic jam, while you're waiting in line at the grocery store, while you're sitting in line waiting to pick up your kids, how those lines, you're sitting there. Is
there something better to be, is it better to be standing or sitting? Is there a better position?
Just took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, it's best.
Sorry.
When you're working your upper lymph, that you're sitting up, right, or standing, your lower lymph, it's best if you're not sitting, because when you're sitting, you're clogging.
Yes. Right.
So it's best if you are standing as you work your cisterna, and then your inguinals or your iliac rather, and your inguinals, and then all your lower leg. It is best if you're standing so that it can flow up, or you're laying down, just so this area isn't cut in half.
Yeah, makes sense. It's
like pinching your hose and trying to think that the water is going to go through that. It's not going to be as easy.
Right.
So it's better if the areas that bend aren't bent, that they're straight.
Okay.
If you're pumping them, because then I don't have to work around that.
Now, does everybody have a cisterna, Kylie? I heard that not everybody has that node. Is that true?
Okay. It's not a lymph node. It's not actually, there's some rule that it's got to be a certain size, it's got to have a certain function, then it can be classified as a lymph node. It's actually classified, the cisterna Kylie has its own name, but it's an empty sac. And what I would tell you from Gil Headley, who is an anatomist, who he calls himself an integrative let me think about how I call it, an integrative anatomist versus a regional anatomist. And it's the difference of being a vitalist versus a mechanistic. So Gil Hedley does a lot of dissections. He's a dissection lab king and teacher of anatomy, so that people that are doing body work can actually visualize and see what they're doing. He's a fascia expert, and he's also a divinity and ethics PhD. So he really understands the connection of the living matrix. And I highly recommend everybody look into Gil Hedley's work, particularly if you're a practitioner. But what he's learned through his 30-year experience of dissecting bodies is that every single body is unique, just as every heartbeat is unique in our life, just as every snowflake is unique. Every single breath in your life that you'll breathe is a frequency measurement, and it'll never be the same as any other breath. Every single body is unique. I said to you in the beginning of this, everybody has between 600 and 1,000 lymph nodes.
Right. Okay.
Pretty big range.
It is. It is.
600 to 1,000. You know, I mean, some people are 5 foot. Some people are 6'9". That's also a large range. Some people are skinny. Some people are heavy. That's also a large range. So everybody's body is different. And Gil really says, which I really stand on his shoulder in saying, that everybody's body is anatomically perfect. Some people are born with 2 spleens. Some people are born without a pinky. 99% of the people are born with a cisterna cali, from my understanding. But of course, there's always that outlier that some people don't have that particular empty sac in that location. You know,
Okay.
could it grow? I think it could if you give it more attention.
Right.
Maybe it's hidden under adipose tissue. Maybe it's hard to palpate. How does somebody know whether you have something that's between, are you ready for its size?
Okay.
A half a millimeter to 25 millimeters inside is the size of a lymph node. A cisterna currently is not identified as a lymph node. One of the reasons is its size. It's a little bit larger than a couple millimeters, but it's a couple millimeters big. That's tiny.
Oh, okay.
So it might be hard to palpate it, but I'm not saying they don't have it. Upon investigation, ultrasound, I would guess that probably the only way you're really going to determine that is upon, you know, after the body is done and now we're excavating out the lymph nodes or dissecting the body, then you can identify what the body had or hasn't had, because everything's in flux. Everything's always changing. Nothing is stagnant. Everything's in perpetual motion. We know this from Nassim Harriman's work and some other people that are teaching fluid dynamics. And I look at the body very much like that. Like, I had wisdom teeth when I was a teenager. And like most people, I had them extracted right before I was 20. And I don't know, it was many years later, like 15, 16 years later, I was told I had cavitations from where my wisdom teeth were extracted. So then I did cavitational surgery. Then fast forward 10 years, cone beam became the gold standard in biological dentistry. So I did a cone beam and I was told I had cavitations. I was like, no. I had cavitational surgery. I don't have cavitations anymore, which are holes in the bone, where the tooth was. And now there's just a repository for like toxicants and pathogens and so forth. And he was like, no, you still have holes in your bone. Look. And he showed me on the cone beam. And he said, the only way to solve that is surgery. And just like I was told the only way to solve my arm and my elbow was surgery, I was like, well, I don't want to do surgery. So how about we do it another way? Yeah. And 2 years later, we did another cone beam. I never did an injection. I took homeopathics and I trusted my body and I told my body what to do and trusted it that it would. And 2 years later, I had no cavitations. I had no holes.
That's amazing.
Now, supposedly that can't happen. Right. But what's the probability of that happening, Sasha? I would say it's 100%, considering it did.
Right. Right.
So, you know, I've had clients that had spleens removed and then they do an ultrasound 5 years later and they have a spleen. I've had clients have adenoids removed and then they do some kind of ENT, scope and they go, well, let me move your adenoids. And they're like, no, I had my adenoids removed. Like, the body's miraculous and it's regenerative, right? The physical body's regenerative and we have to depend upon the spiritual body to allow it. So to say I don't know. I've never heard that, to be honest with you. I've never heard that some people don't have cisterna.
Okay.
But at the same time, I look at it and go, it's possible, sure. I also
Right.
think it's possible if you're not. Let's set attention to allow it, because it is a great toll booth in the middle of this track, and it's very functionally necessary to allow the lower body to mobilize the drainage.
Right. Right. So interesting. Yeah. And it's that trusting in that. And actually, Joe Dispenza even talks about a story about somebody, he said he had to actually see it. They regrew their thyroid after having their thyroid removed.
I was there for when he talked about, well, he probably talked about it multiple times, but I understood that so much when he said that. I was like, I mean, I say all the time, documentation beats conversation. I had a mentor years ago that taught me that. And it really has stood the standard of time with the medicine that I do, that I'm very much about. I feel it, I'd experience it, but can we prove that in a lab and prove that I did it, that we saw it, that it actually changed my regulation, that something physiologically changed, that I didn't just think it? But we know thoughts are things. And we are so lucky to be in this time in life right now and where we are, that we have all the beauty of ancient wisdom knowledge that so many of us have been studying about how we really heal. Yeah. And yet we also have modern technology, and we can bridge these two together so that we can really trust the unknown, the unseen, because of people like Kamal Patel, that's proving Dr. Joe's work, for instance, for Sound of Soul with Rasmus, who worked with Emoto, who evolved that water crystal work to understand how that can be applied for our own water, to make our own water crystals beautiful. So it's really such an amazing, beautiful, phenomenal time, remarkable time to have access to all of this and this knowledge and the internet, and then so many people like yourselves that are so devoted to getting this information out there, which is really how we're going to free everybody. And no matter what country you live in, the real freedom comes from, self-care over healthcare, because your healthcare is your real jail.
That's a trap. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And 100%. We're here to help free you. Right. And again, I invite you to start with your lymph to free you, because that's the filter in your body that's dirty, that you don't have to chase a bunch of symptoms. You don't have to know a bunch of physiology. You certainly can. You can know it all, but all that allows you to do is go right back, like I do, to go, it's still your fascia and your lymph. I mean, it's become 4-letter words in my house. My son's like, I know, it's my fascia and my lymph. Like, I don't want to hear about it. I know. Like, every problem in the world is fascia and lymph, But
it's such a fundamental basic. It's so true. And we have to go to the fundamental basics. People chase all these endpoint problems that are you could wipe so many of those things off the map if you were to just go to the fundamental basics right from the beginning.
I don't know why I've never thought of this terminology before. And I thank you so much, Sasha, for being part of this. And Jane, who helped me, she called me this a month and a half ago. She said this to me, and I never had heard this terminology since I was teaching my kid math, once again, teaching him fractions. And you've just brought it up again. It's the lowest common denominator. Mm-hmm. Lowest common denominator is the thing that approaches and touches all the things. And it's the base principle. And the lowest common denominator in your body is your fascia and your lymph. And when you approach that, when you address that, when you go there first, as Sasha was saying, so many other things upstream just go away, and you don't have to chase all those things.
Right.
So I'm a simple person. I don't want complexity, although I can understand complexity. I like simplicity. And I like to boil down to, okay, yeah, that's all great, but what's the lowest common denominator?
Right.
And when I started doing this medicine, I saw all these people. We were the clinic that everybody came to, a handful of our friends that have clinics like ours, that everybody goes everywhere else and they come to us. They've been to the doctors, they've been to the Mayos, they've been to 15 to 20 docs, and they end up in biological, bioregulatory medicine. And we all approach it from a terrain perspective versus a cellular perspective and function. We know the function of the organs is important, but we're looking at the regulation to see what's driving that function. It's the lowest common denominator. It's the thing that makes everything else go. right? And so as we were getting these really complex cases and many diagnoses that I had never seen before, I would just say to the client, well, I mean, here's the thing. I know you're going to travel from across the country. You don't know me from a hole in the ground. We didn't even have a sign and I barely had a website at the time. This is, 15, 20 years ago. And I'd be like, but it doesn't matter what your symptoms are. Come on in. We can help you open up your drainage, get your emotional work, and they were like, what? And that became the thing that I saw over and over again throughout the years of going, yeah, this is the thing that if you work on the fascia and lymph, it demands the regulation on all the other aspects of life so that the cells are being signaled properly, as Dr. Bruce Lipton teaches us, so that we can be present, as Dr. Joe teaches us, to who we are and not caught up with all this other crap because it's just our mind overworking rather than diving into our heart, which is the only thing that heals that we know from Roland McCready. I mean, I'm dropping a lot of names because I want you to realize this is a science that is so elegant and so special, and so many people don't know the science of today. It's fascinating to me, Sasha, that, I was listening to Nassim talk the other day on Know Thyself podcast, which I think is an amazing podcast. And I was like, it's really true what he says. I mean, we haven't had a lot of advances in physics and quantum physics in hundreds of years. That doesn't make sense, you guys. That just doesn't make sense. I mean, this is my phone. Really? It does more than my computer did when I grew up and I was 5 years old. My mother was a computer teacher and we had an Apple computer when I was 5. I'm 50 now. So that's a long time ago.
Wow, you had one when you were 5. Whoa,
my mom
way
was
ahead of it.
Teacher. We were way ahead of our time. We had an Apple computer in my house when I was 5 years old. This does way more than that thing did by lightning speed. Like I used to take typing tests on that thing. My brothers would place Space Invaders and what was that other one that they like stupid, like really cheesy games. This is ridiculous compared to that, right? Like huge advances in every shape and form except for our understanding of water,
huge,
the universe, because we stopped going to space and stopped understanding it. And yet the majority of life is space and water. The majority of your body is space and water. And I know from looking in live blood analysis through microscopes that there's more space in the body than there are cells. And that space is the fascia and the lymph that's holding it all together. And that space can change. It's pleomorphic. It can be solid. It can be liquid. It depends upon the environment and what it's doing to protect us or to allow flow. And we've all been in such protective mode forever, honestly, since human beings have been here, evolved, designed, created, whatever your system of knowing is. But ever since I can track humans and what I've been tracking for 20 years in the 21st century is that most people live in sympathetic fight flight mode. Yet they drive in with their luxury cars, their luxury phones, leaving their luxury homes, leaving their luxury jobs. And somebody, and people that also just live more of a less luxurious average lifestyle. But even the average lifestyle is walking in their car that works really well, coming from their home that's heated, where they turn on faucets and they get clean water, where they go to the grocery store and they can buy the food that they need, that's organic or not, but it's there and plentiful. And we live in a very abundant society, and particularly in an abundant world here in the United States, or wherever you're listening to this. I mean, I just recently traveled from Bali, and abundant in many ways, but not abundant in the way that we are in the modern westernized world. And yet we're sick. And we don't understand the fundamentals, the lowest common denominator, the fact that we're 99% water, and water holds information, and that energy is what we are, which is sound and light. And that sound and light are the waves that travel through the fascia and the lymph that then allow the body the right information to let go of what we don't need and hold on to what we do need. So why wouldn't you want to work your lymph 2, 3, 5, 18 times a day? Why wouldn't you use that as your first line of like, oh, something's coming up. Okay, let me pump my lymph and see if I notice a shift in my overall feeling, in my overall presentation, in what's happening, because I've given my body a little bit of a jump in the direction of going, oh, let me take a little stress off your body.
Yeah.
Because we also know that when we mobilize our lymph, we go into the parasympathetic. And we know that when we go in the parasympathetic, we mobilize our lymph. And we know the parasympathetic is the only mode that the body heals in. So I just said that from testing heart rate variability for 20 years, most people, 99.9% of the people that I put on this test, whether they are sick or not, because I've tested all sorts of bodies, or they walk in chronically sick or not, even acutely sick, they're sympathetically they're overly sympathetic. Their tone, their testing is they're in dominantly, that's what I was looking for, dominantly sympathetic, right. Dominant, fight, flight. And yet the body only heals when it's dominantly in parasympathetic. So in the beginning of this, I said to you, yes, I'm busy, but I'm not nearly as busy as I've been, because what I did was took 5 weeks off. And why? Because when I tested my heart rate variability and I tested all my live blood, even though I had a broken elbow and a dislocated shoulder, everything looked great. Everything was going in the right direction. So I kept going.
Yeah.
But it took a long time for me to get out of pain. It took a long time for me to get my range of motion back in my shoulders and elbows. Yeah.
Ha ha ha.
And that biggest significant change happened in the 5 weeks that I took off.
Right. Yeah. And people have to give themselves grace to do that, right? They don't. So I just want to ask, okay, on top of the movement, what are other things that nourish the lymph? What can people do? Because I don't think we're the quality of water I would think would matter. Like what are the things that you would think would nourish the lymph in a lifestyle that's supporting healthy lymph?
It's a great question. So one is I want to give you the lymph loopholes. Do we have that for your community yet?
I don't think so. Nope.
All right. I'm going to have Genevieve send that to you. It's a little guide that we put together that I give out sometimes. And I think your community is primed for it and ready for it. So it's called the lymph loopholes.
Okay.
And it's just the things that, you can skip through so you don't fall down them. The number one thing is tight fitting clothes. So many people wear tight fitting clothes and the material. So particularly in our industry, a lot of people are wearing tight yoga clothes. Yes. And they think that they're doing them body good because they went and spent $140 on a yoga mat and yoga clothes and are going to hot yoga. And it's all full of plastics and formaldehydes and it's leaching back into their lymph system. I mean, I'm a really happy person, but I got some real disturbing news for you folks. The clothes that we wear is going into your lymph system. And so start paying attention to that. The jewelry you wear, like nothing nickel plated, go tell all your spouses, sorry, can't use anything but like pure gold and pure silver from now on. Sorry, can't buy me fake jewelry. I'd rather wear no jewelry than buy fake jewelry. And then clothes, a lot of the, oh God, I can never think of the name of it. What is the material? The spandexy material? Because I'm like adamantly opposed to it. And the other one, the really soft stuff that people wear that's merino wool. Is that what it's called?
No, merino wool is wool. Merino wool's from merino.
I can't use merino wool because I sweat like a banshee when I put on wool.
I'm wearing it right now.
Yeah, it's like one of those things in my void. But there's another one that's really soft, that polyester. That's what it is.
Okay.
Guys, I'm so far removed from it. I can't even think of the word polyester. But I grew up with a dry cleaner father. So I always learned to buy your clothes to not be dry cleaned because dry clean is so chemically laden. Isn't that funny?
Interesting. Yeah.
So I've always bought clothes that are more linen or cotton just from that perspective and then ironed them. And then they shrunk, right? That's the problem. They all shrink or they're not high quality. So then I went away from that for 20 years and I started buying less expensive fabrics that wore better. And then maybe 5 years ago, I started reaching the point where all my labels were red except for my clothes labels. And I started reading my clothes labels and I started to do this. I started to have panic attacks. I'm like, oh my God, I've cleaned up my entire environment. My clothes are toxing me out. And I just started replacing all my clothes. And now if it's not made with cotton, linen, or consciously rayon that's from another country, because that's bamboo's processed really highly. I don't subscribe to bamboo, but that is one of the biggest problems. Like, we're cleaning up our environment and we're not thinking about the clothes we're wearing. And the second thing that people are not really considering is the water. I mean, they're walking around with water bottles, but what are you showering in? What are you bathing? What are you cooking in? And what are you exposing yourself when you brush your teeth, when you wash your face, when you do all this stuff that you're 99% molecularly water. And the number one reason for lymph stagnancy is dehydration. And a lot of people are drinking a lot of water, but they're not absorbing the water because it's not active, it's not structured, it's not energetic. So it's dead water. And so they're peeing a lot and they're wiping out their minerals, and they're diluting the nutrition and the supplements they probably got, and they're wiping that out because their body's not absorbing that. And why don't you absorb any of that? Because you're in the sympathetic. Because when the body's in the sympathetic mode, it's in fight flight. It's not relaxed. It's not safe. If we're not safe, we can absorb. So how many people eat a great diet, do all the right things, but don't feel well?
Lots.
And then they do tests and they go, wow, I'm malnourished. Look at all the nutrients I'm not getting, but I'm eating a great diet. Yeah. And I'm dehydrated, but I drink all the time. It's because the body's in the wrong mode. And we must first shift our gear, get into the parasympathetic, drain the body, create more space by the lymph, by breath, create movement in all sorts of weird ways. So the fascia moves and we don't get in habits. We just move differently all the time, and we move our bodies and it flows with us, and we find where our cranky spots are. And we go, oh, that's a cranky spot. And we move around to find why. And that why is going to show up because all of a sudden you're moving, and all of a sudden you're going to have a thought, you're going to have a feeling, you're going to have an emotion. And it could have nothing related to this. All of a sudden you're like, why am I thinking about my third grade teacher? I don't know, maybe it's something old that's showing up. Or maybe you saw something that reminded you 3 weeks ago, and that's why you've had your neck cranked for 3 weeks, or whatever the case may be. There's always a reason. Your body's always showing up for you. It's never damaging you. It's always working to protect you.
Totally.
Now our job is to rise above that, have an awareness above our consciousness, witness the body going, okay, you're in sympathetic, you're in fight flight, you're in pain, you're in dis-ease, you're having a symptom. Let me help you.
And you can just feel it with that first breath, it starts to change, right? Like you can feel it. It's palpable.
And then maybe I want to up my ante. And like you said, oh, I'm going to go get a lymph massage next week. Well, I'm here to tell you, we live in a toxic soup. I mean, again, happy person, just depressing news. I go outside and breathe. I'm getting aluminum and mercury airborne. Yeah. I eat an organic diet. I'm still getting glyphosate.
Yeah.
I'm sitting right here right now. I got radio waves. There's 3 buildings next to me. FedEx is right down there. You don't think I'm getting hit with Wi-Fi, even though I got protections on my computer on here. I got this whole place organed up. I'm still affected by it. I was on a plane last week, and I'm getting on a plane next week. I drove 5 hours yesterday exposed to EMFs in my car. You know, like, we're living in it, folks. And so the only way to get above it is to drain out more than they're throwing at us. And so you got to move your lymph. You brush your teeth twice a day. You at least move your lymph twice a day if you're well. If you're dealing with any symptoms or signs of illness, then I recommend you move your lymph 4 to 5 times a day at home. Just the quick top 15 that I teach in my manual lymph pumping. Then if you really want to go deeper, you get a tool like this, which is not a dildo, but it kind of looks like one. But it's a lymph flow tool, and it's called Vibe, and it's a vibration tool. There's 3 speeds of vibration, and it's bio, life, sonic, sound, life sound for the lymph. It's a specific vibration that's to stimulate the lymphatic flow, because sound is a vibration, as well as pumping creates a vibration, and vibration is how the body works. So we hold it at those same spots. So you don't have to pump, you can just hold it. You can do this for your kids. You can do this for your spouse. Maybe they don't want to pump their own lymph. Great. Well, I'm going to sit next to you and I'm going to hold this over your nodes for about 5 seconds each spot, and I instantly start to notice I'm in the parasympathetic. So you can use this tool.
Can we get those in Canada? I tried. They don't seem to be very available in Canada.
So my good friend Melina Roberts in Calgary is the one that I hooked Desiree Despong up to distribute.
I got it right. I have to check in with her. Her clinic is literally within a 15-minute walk from my house.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah. Dr. Melina Roberts is amazing. But she, when this all came out, I said to Desiree, just call Melina. She'll help us. She'll help distribute them in Canada, because I know it's a problem because of the shipping costs. So she was going to like distribute a bunch of them to Melina, and then Melina. I think that's working through. If not,
okay.
But we'll help you guys with that, because you know you nooks need it too. And then I teach a master class. So the tool is $85, and then I teach a $29 master class that you own. That's 2 hours that I teach you then to do the full body sequence, as well how to drain your liver, your spleen, and how to treat your scars with this tool. Because
amazing.
I still feel that people need to go see therapists at times, for sure. And teaching and physiotherapists better than most in Canada, and you guys definitely have it over at Americans. Physiotherapists understand lymph better than most, and the therapists that I've had from Canada seem to instinctively go after the lymph. And if you're in the States, you have to find massage therapists that go and work the lymphatics. And physical therapists know about the lymph, but they don't do much about it at all. It's a very fascinating thing. Like, the two schools are very different. Physical therapists and physiotherapists, while they're supposed to be the same, I don't consider them at all the same licensing. It's because I've been doing this for 20 years and I've had such exposure. I'm like, physiotherapists are more like DOs.
DOs.
And doctors of osteopathy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They're more like DOs. They really understand the body from a different, and they can adjust and they can inject and they can do all sorts of things in Canada they can't do in the States. And they work the lymph, because their whole thing is to, if I can move the lymph out of the way, the bones will go back in place. And physical therapists are taught, if I put the bones in place, everything will go in place.
Right. Interesting. That sounds more forceful. I don't know. That sounds.
Yeah, it is. It is. I would agree. Although I've had my body under some of your physiotherapists in Canada. I'd say forceful is definitely along the same.
Okay. Yeah.
But that said, the fascia will block the lymph, and the fascia is where you have the scarification. It's where it gets really congested because of the Wi-Fi. And it gets really tight because of dehydration and from sitting still. So the biggest things that I see people that really don't look at their lymph is, what can I stop exposing myself to? Like the clothes and the smells and the fragrances and all that. What can I stop putting on my lymph to have to deal with? And then how can I support it best? Hydrate, and move.
Right.
Move and hydrate. It's as simple as, listen, I was with my mother who's 84 years old. She needs a knee surgery. She's not, in the best of health. And so she keeps telling me she's going to the gym. Like, going to the gym? Like, she can barely walk across the room. Like, what the And Mom, why don't you just do my movements with me this morning? Now you look at me, I'm pretty limber. I'm a 50-year-old. I can pretty much do anything I want. And this is how I do my workout in the morning. Here, we're going to start with the head rolls. Okay, Mom, what I want you to do is roll your head. She's like, really? I go, yeah, stand up, hold on to the chair, and just roll your head. And I said, okay, move your fingers. Just hold and breathe. And she's like this. I'm like, no, Mom, go slow. Breathe. Have consciousness. Do you feel your hands stretching? That's fascia and lymph, folks. And I teach that on my Flow Forum. And I decided yesterday I should probably give my mom the Flow Forum so she can watch her daughter all day long do this. But like, if she would do it, as you never profit in your own town. But it doesn't have to be these huge movements. Oh, I got to go exercise for 30 minutes, or I got to go to a yoga class. I mean, I go to yoga classes once or twice a week. I like challenging myself in that way, because if I'm left to my own devices, I find that I'm a little softer on myself. When it comes to exercise, maybe my mind, I'm not so easy, but in physicality, I'm like, I don't wanna. And then if I'm in a class, I'm like, All right, I will. And so it's good to be accountable to all of us need that. I do think that's a human thing. We all need that. But just by moving my body and drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, hydrating my body, then moving my body, then starting my day, I'm getting my breath in alignment. I'm drinking good, clear water. And if you don't have a water filter, I just was in upstate New York, which is where I'm from. And this is one of my favorite waters. I'm a bit of a water snob. So like most people like wine, I walk into the Wegmans and I'm like, oh my God, they have Saratoga water. I know they're going to have a ton of it. It's hard to find still Saratoga water unless you're up there, because I don't think these probably travel really well. So I got I got 24 bottles of Saratoga water, because I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Because the blue bottles themselves, by keeping water in the blue bottle overnight, not under the fluorescent lights, but in the sunshine or in somewhere good, that alone will get your water to be a higher quality, higher frequency, because it's cobalt blue. And so I bought a bunch of them and left them for my mom and said, even though you're drinking tap water, because she won't drink the filtered water no matter what I do, she thinks I'm crazy. I said, just put your tap water in this. And I left her some electrolytes, and just put a little electrolytes in it, and then leave it for 24 hours, then drink that water. At least your tap water has a day to sit and be structured so that when you drink it, it's going to be more hydrating to her, right? So it was funny. I learned a lot trying to teach my mom, because it's the simplest things that make the biggest impact. She sits in a chair all day. She had COVID a couple of years ago, and it really declined her ability to move her body, is what I've seen more than anything. And so she just sits there and waits for somebody to come and then make her exercise. And I'm like, just every 2 hours, if you got up out of your chair and just stood straight and held yourself standing. So before our session today, I did a test called a contact regulation thermography assessment. I hadn't done it in 2 years. My teammate came in early for me to do it. And you have to not shower before it. You have no makeup on, no thinner. You have 128 points of temperature taken. Then you stand naked in a room for 10 minutes, and you come in and do all the points at the end. And I had to stand still without moving, and you don't want to lock your knees. And notoriously, when I've done this test in the past, I sweat, and that sweat pours right out of my armpits. And I'm very antsy in the past, and very much like, oh my God, when is this 10 minutes over? And I know how much I've changed, because I sat there for this test and I was like, oh, I'm just going to do my meditation and feel my body and be aware of my aligned body or my misaligned body, and not judge it and just be aware of it. And when she came in, I said, can you just take a picture of me front and sideways before we do the rest of the test? She goes, right now when you're naked? I go, yes, I want to assess myself, because what I feel and what I see, I want to get them to be more in alignment, because I feel very like, as I stand here, I can be very aware. Now that this is moving, this side's real cranky and pissed off that it did all the work for 9 months. And I have had this stinger issue in my neck for about 4 weeks. And I can just start to feel how non-symmetrical my body is, because I've been braced in this left arm and left shoulder for 9 months in different ways and lacking range of motion until I've finally increased that. But now the tensegra and everything, it's starting to be off. And it's just, can we stand with ourselves and have proper anatomical form and feel our bodies?
Well, and it's so interesting how many people, when we're just going and busy all the time, you're never going to tune into that. You're never going to feel the lack of symmetry, right? You wouldn't even notice it. Just to sit there, that sounds really powerful. Actually, just sit there, vulnerable in your naked form, and just feel everything, and how that sounds really cool. Because it's even like my husband, he used to be a massage therapist, but every once in a while I still get a massage, and I would lie down and be ready on the table. He goes, so you think you're lying straight on the table? I'm like, yeah. And then he would take my legs and he would swing me over. I would feel so off, and it's so ridiculous. So that's a pretty cool experiment, I think, to go through.
And now think about that and the flow of water. If you were a vessel and you had water flowing through you and you felt all these asymmetricals, the water's got to go through that versus just flowing naturally.
Right.
And that's the lymph. So what we first need to do is be aware of our bodies. We need to hydrate it. so that we're not exposing ourselves to stuff that we shouldn't in our clothes or in our environment. We're hydrating it, because always the solution is dilution. Always, always, always. And then we can facilitate its flow with the lymph, and then the fascia, by being aware of where it's cranky and not, we can start to move to get it more symmetrical, which is what yoga is really about. And breath is being aware of where we're out of alignment, and getting back into alignment, and getting both sides to communicate, so there isn't a difference from side to side, which creates imbalances structurally, which creates lymphatic imbalances, which then creates pooling of toxicants, which then creates dis-ease and illness.
Right.
So this is the vessel. And I've always been told about my posture, because I was very tall growing up, and tall and young, and sit up straight, stand up straight. And I just really wanted to be smaller and just really crunched down, because I didn't want to be noticed because of all low self-esteem bullshit. And I sat in my hometown yesterday for the first time in 2 decades that I've walked into the church that I grew up in, and sat there in this church with, I don't know, 200 people, and watched all them come up for communion. And I was talking to my teammate about it, how much work we have to do out there, because
Posture.
I watch these people walk, and they all claim it's my old age, it's this, but are they holding themselves up? I held myself up on that pew yesterday, and I can guarantee you I've never done that before. And I went to Catholic school and Catholic church from 0 to 18 years old, and I never held my back off the back of the pew before. And I held my back off the back of that pew for an hour as I sat there, and just allowed energy to flow through me as I sat in this church, and could take out of it what was good for me and leave everything that wasn't, because that's where I've come to. And I watched, out of 200 people, I'm going to be honest, I did not see one that walked up to get communion that I felt like, oh, they don't look like they're in pain. Every single person that I walked by me, I was like, they're in pain. I can see how they're walking. Whether they feel it or not, their body's in pain. And that's going to cause disease. And then, they're not taught this. They're taught to go to doctors, because I went through a lot of conversations. I had a lot of conversations with a lot of my mom's friends, and they just sit around, they talk about what medications they're on and how they're going to take one medication, offset the other medication, while at the same time, they all complain about taking medications. They complain about doctors. They complain about how much time they don't have with doctors. And then when I sit there and go, no, I don't want the alcohol. No, I don't want, the processed food. Let's go a little bit farther and get the whole food. No, we don't want that. No, we're gonna analemma wand all of our iced tea, because at least we're gonna structure the iced tea. And they're like, what's an analemma wand? It's like, just don't worry about it. Everybody just don't worry about it. I'm making it all happen. Because I feel like the alien that's arrived on the planet that goes, this is where you came from? And I'm so grateful that I came from there. And yet having to gone back made me aware of how much education I still have yet to do, because they don't understand how I can feel as good as I do, and how I don't complain, and how I'm flexible, and how
I know.
like they just
Yeah, I can tell you that I have been very consistent for almost a year now on daily lymph flow and doing some really simple fascia movements a few times a day. And my body is changing. Like, it looks different. It feels different. There's definitely more ease. There's less stagnation. Like, I used to get like a lot more swelling in my legs, and it takes time for that to change over time. But that consists, like, the way I can grab my skin and roll it, where before it was so adhered everywhere. Like, it's just such a gift. And I share it with people all the time. And it's amazing. Some people feel nauseous right away. Some people feel lighter. Some people don't notice anything, but it's just such a simple thing that that's the thing. I don't go to the gym anymore. I do my basics, but my basic fascia stuff and lymph stuff. And that's all I feel that I need. I do a little bit of strength. I'll do some push-ups. I'll do some pull-ups, but I don't need a lot of things.
I walked for 2 30-minute sessions while I was in that town. And when I walk, I thought to myself, this is really funny because it's a small town. And even though I've been there in 20 years, you know, everybody knows everybody. And I was like, wow, there's going to be some conversations had in the next week about Kelly traveling back home because I'm walking around town and it's morning. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my thing and I'm not going to care. These people think I'm nuts. And I'm walking around town and this is what I'm doing as I'm walking. Doing my lifts as I'm walking. I'm kicking my legs out. Maybe I'm standing for a minute at the red light waiting to be told I could cross the street. And here you can't see what I'm doing. And I'm like rolling my ankle.
Okay. Yeah.
My foot, you know. And then I'm walking. I'm like watching myself. I'm feeling myself do push-ups through the air. Then I go a little higher and then I keep, because I'm still rehabbing this. And that's how I walk 30 minutes. I got back. I was full on sweat. I had 2 layers on because it was freaking cold. It was like 40 degrees. And my mom's like, wow, did you go to the gym? I was like, no, I just went for a walk.
Yeah.
Just when I walked, I was very conscious of my footing. I was conscious of what foot was in front of the other. I was conscious of my hips. I was conscious of the position. That's where I was like, are my hips out like this or my hips out like this? This is a new thing Kelly's working on, to work with her little poochie out, like walking with her ass out, right?
Right.
Because that allows my structure to be different. What I've realized is I've rehabbed my shoulder. It's really always been about my hips. My hips have been a problem for way before the car accident. They kind of missed at the car accident because I was all focused up here. And once again, I was focused up here. And when I went down to do my first downward dog after 8 months, I could feel it in my hips. And I was like, oh crap, my hips. And I feel like I'm starting all over again, once again with my hips and going, it's okay. But I'm doing it very differently and consciously. And it's really just about that. It's about how aware can I be still, without judgment, and then start to move so you start to feel more even. And I appreciate what you said. It's cumulative and it's consistency. It doesn't happen overnight. But boy, I bet you're committed. So let me ask you this. Prior to a year ago, when you started doing this fascia and lymph, how often did you have symptoms and weird feelings in your body that you just couldn't you couldn't do anything about? You just kept going on a weekly basis or a monthly basis? I mean, you're in the world, you're in the health world, all that still.
Well, I don't know. What I would notice is this a lot of discomfort in my legs. So that's always where that's where things bothered me. I also had for a long time, and I know it had to be lymph, all the back of my knee and my left leg, and I'd have this moving pressure, and it's like it was stuck for the longest time. And I noticed something up here. Now it's all gone. That stuff's all gone. And it's amazing how I can, even when I had like an SI joint out for the longest time, I just did some really simple stuff. I decided I'm not going to go to the chiropractor. I'm not going to do anything. And I finally did some fascia stuff. And it's like, boom, fixed it. So yeah, there's just more ease. There's just more daily general ease in my body, I have to say.
And do you feel like you're working really hard to get it?
No, it's just regularly and it's consistently, and it takes effort just to do it, but I'm always so glad I did. But no, it's not.
And how much time are you devoting to this?
In the morning, 15 minutes.
Thank you. And I appreciate being honest, because that's it, you guys and ladies, that's what we're talking about. Yes, is it a pain in your butt that you have to go, oh my God, I got to do it. But after you do it, you're like, oh my God, I feel so much better. But it doesn't have to be an hour workout at the gym that you have to leave the house for and you have to drive back and forth. Right. It can be 10 to 15 minutes
10 to 15 minutes.
Attention of doing simple movements that change. And if you need guidance, I have the energy flow form for $23 a month. I step you through all this stuff really simply and easy, because I want to give you what it takes to live a biological lifestyle. Right. It's not that difficult. It's just being consistent with it. And as I drove back home from my mother's house, or maybe it was on the way there, I forget now, my brother, who years ago kicked me out of his house because I had joined a cult as far as they were concerned, because I came home and told everybody that my back pain was going to go away because I started taking these Chinese herbs, and I started drinking pure water and pure air. And I didn't know how bad it was in the environment we lived in 1996. And they called an intervention. They called my mother, my 2 brothers. My father had passed the year before. And they thought I had truly lost my mind. Truly.
Wow.
And I didn't talk to my mother for a couple years, my one brother for 5, and my other brother for 7. The one brother that I was talking to, that I talked to almost every day, I didn't talk to for about 7 years. And he's now one of my best friends. And he thought I was nuts, back in the 20s. And then when COVID hit and I started the podcast and all that, and he was adamantly opposed to getting the thing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, over the last 4 years, he's like, isn't it funny? We like talk about the same things now, and we're like on the same page, and like we have the same belief systems and all the things. And I'm like, you think it's funny? I've been standing here for 27 years waiting for somebody to come on my side going, don't you see the insanity of it all? And as I was driving, it was on the way up to my mother's. He was talking about how, and all he does is listen to news all day long. And then he reiterates it. And he listens to all the channels because he divides his own opinion, which I really appreciate about him. And he's all about sovereignty these days, which is great. And he said to me about 6 months ago, I'm questioning now. They all thought I was nuts, and they wanted to call medical, what do they call it? Child Protective Services, because I was going to have the child at home at 39 years old.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So, and I wasn't going to vaccinate him, and I was going to put him in harm's way. Okay, that was 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, 6 months ago, my brother said, we're starting to question whether we should have ever vaccinated our girls now that I've learned everything. His girls are now in their teenage and 20s. And I was like, fascinating.
Isn't that interesting?
So then I'm driving up to my mother's, and he goes, wouldn't it be funny after all these years that everything you've been saying is everything everybody else is saying, that finally now all your work really takes off because you've been saying this stuff for so long? I go, Patrick, that's not what's funny. That's actually what's happening.
Yeah.
But isn't it great that, he goes, isn't it great? Isn't it great? All your crazy ideas are now normal. I go, Patrick, the point is that I was never crazy.
Right. Exactly.
You guys were the ones that were crazy.
Yeah.
I was the truth teller that you thought was crazy, but because I've been living this way for 27 years, now you too are thinking about the water that you're eating or drinking and thinking that GMO products aren't so good. I remember having the conversation with him when GMO came out, and he was like, I think it's so great. We're finally modifying our food. I was
world. Yeah.
Oh my God, Patrick. And now he's like, I can't believe I thought genetically modified food was good. I'm like, yes. Thank you. So while we know there's a lot of work, we also know a lot of work has been done. And I honestly am so grateful for you and for so many people that are out there spreading the word, and for all of you that are sharing this with your friends and family and that are taking it into action. And weirdly as it is to say, is I'm grateful to COVID, because COVID really forced us to take a look, to be still, to have that perspective, to take a witness, to take a shot and go, wait, what's really important in life? And how can I really take the steps forward to make sure, to ensure that I have control over my health?
Right.
And that's what I've always wanted for everybody since I learned this medicine. And I'm so grateful for all the powers that be that came together, including the internet, that allowed for us all to communion in these ways, to educate and to empower you to know that this is easier than you think. And it's simpler than you think. And we're here for you. We're here to help you be accountable. We're here to help you have tools to make it easier and fun. And most importantly, have fun. This is supposed to be heaven on earth. That's what I'm supposed to share with the world. And I haven't shared this publicly. So are you open for me sharing this?
Yes.
She has no idea what I'm going to share, but she's just open. I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of spending time in the unknown. And I had 5 times that I had something occur to me when I was in the unknown. And I was like, I can't tell that to people. They will put me in a straitjacket and they will tie me up. In the last 2 weeks, I have had so many signs that it's just time to put this on public platform and to tell people that I was raised Catholic, and I have studied Buddhism and Hinduism and all the different things. And I would have very surprised when Jesus came and talked to me while I was in a meditation. Now we know that our own imagination is all that we have, and that we have filters. And so there's a reason Krishna didn't come to me, because I want to know what Krishna looked like. There's a reason Jesus came to me, because I know what Jesus looks like. And Jesus, Buddha, Allah, I know they all had the same message and that we've misunderstood it. And what I was told to help other people understand is that we have misunderstood Jesus's message quite a bit, and that this is about spreading our wings, spreading our arms out wide to allow our Sacred Heart to lead, that the burden of the cross is the physical body, and that we are to let go of the burden of the physical body to trust it. And whether our head is up or our head is down, it's not about the mind, it's all about the Sacred Heart. And that just like the women who, it's an analogy, the women at the feet told all the stories and said all the right words, Jesus rose again to live heaven on earth. And that when we can truly live with our wings spanned, outspan, when we truly fly as the angels that every one of us are, that we can lead with our Sacred Heart, with our love, and no matter where our mind is at, find where our heart is at and speak the right words, and you too again can live heaven on earth. Because I'm here to tell you, I live heaven on earth every single day, regardless of what's happening. Even if I break my elbow on black ice and dislocate my shoulder and live in pain for 6 months and then dislocate 6 ribs on a second fall, I live heaven on earth every single day, every single breath I take, every step I take, because I remember who I really am and how powerful we are. We are divine beings having a physical experience, and we are here to shed this burden of this physical body, to live in this physical body and own it as the temple that it is. This is the water temple right here. It's 99% water. Treat it with the sovereignty and the reverence that it deserves. It houses all your energy and all the field around you. And love each other as yourself, because we are all the same. We are just a bunch of energy and frequency in a bag of water held together by the shape of the fascia of which we live in, that are connected to everybody else's fascia, just like every mushroom is connected, as is our fascia. It is all connected to the love of which we all come from. And that is what we really are, is love. And anything else that gets caught up in the middle takes us away from healing. And love is what heals. And love is at the center of our heart. And I can prove it with science, with heart rate variability, with live blood analysis, with water crystallography, with Veda Austin's work. This is the beauty of science catching up to ancient wisdom and proving that math, science, God, fluid dynamics, it's all one, because we're all one.
Woo. Okay. There we go. There you have it in a nutshell, folks.
I mean, you can cut that part off. It's too aggressive for your community.
Not aggressive at all. Not at all. No, this is the thing. And I love that word reverence, because I think we're living, there are some really crazy things happening in this world where the reverence for life has been lost. We're just ready to offer somebody death when they're going through a hard time, at their most vulnerable time in their lives. Like, oh, well, we can just assist you with that. You don't have to go through that anymore. And where's the reverence of the whole process to get you to this understanding of what we really are and why we're here? It's amazing. Thank you. I know we have to wrap this up, Kelly. I always appreciate your time. Let everybody know how best to find you, please.
So the website is the True Wellness Center. The Instagram is True Wellness Global. YouTube is True Wellness PA for Pennsylvania. You can always type in Kelly Kennedy and Lymph. You'll find me.
Find lots. Yeah.
And lots. And I do really want to, I have a podcast, Energy Flow podcast. And I do have a membership that I just started that truly is the foundations of how to live fascia, lymph, oxygen, water, and energy, called Energy Flow Forum. And it's very affordable. It's $23 a month. And I have a Q&A there. So for once a month, we all get together, because my goal is to invite you, that I share my story, so you can get through your story, so we can truly live heaven on earth. Because our story is about the energy of where we live, where we're born, who we're born into, all the things. That is kind of the suit. But then we can change our suit, we can modify our suit, we can upgrade our suit. And that's the fun part of life and what this is about, and having reverence for the fact that we're made in the likeness of the Creator, and we get to create our own reality. And it's really fun. And I have a new game called Quantum Tag Your It. Can you too create something out of nothing? Let's see how much we can have fun playing that.
Oh, love it. Love it. Thank you, Kelly. Always a joy to speak with you. Thank you so much. You have so much to share. Guys, please share this podcast. Get to some fundamental basics. It doesn't have to be complicated. We overcomplicate things so much. Drop into the heart, feel it, do some fundamental movements, some real basics about how to nourish yourself. Treasure the body that you're in. And I think we can go a long way just doing those few things. So thanks for joining me, guys. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, and one more question I have for you, Kelly, is what are the major signs that people are congested, that their lymph needs to move, that it's not moving, that they're backed up?
It's a great question because a lot of people think that if I don't have lymphedema, I don't have lymph stagnancy, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Here are the main signs of lymph stagnancy: fatigue, sleep issues, hormonal issues, digestive issues, skin rashes, headaches, brain fog, menstrual issues, joint pain. Those are the signs that your lymph is stagnant. So as you start to approach your lymph, you'll start to see all those things improve gently and slowly. Just like,
and it's all
slowly, you get better gently and slowly.
And so that really ties back to the fundamental basics, the lowest common denominator, because those are all the things that people are complaining about all the time, right? And you also talk about the puffs, right? So when people are puffy.
Physically, you can see it on a lot of people. That's why I wore this actually for this podcast, was because this is my lymph outfit so that I can teach people really quickly without having to get too undressed. But up here in this area, I've noticed since COVID, this is an area a lot of people get puffy. They actually look like this is like fluidy. So watch for this. I don't like this. And of course, around here and the submandibulars and in the neck, like a lot of people are thin and then they have this big neck. That's lymph stagnancy. That's lymph stagnancy.
Right.
Then the other area is armpits. Now I'm happy to report that up until about a month ago, I had an arm puff and an armpit, but now I'm getting my armpits back because I got better range of motion now. But you can still see it's a little puffier than this side, right? See how indented that is? That's an armpit. This is still a little bit in an arm puff because of lack of range of motion from having broken that 9 months ago. Look at the change, you guys. Like you can see that.
Yes, yes, you can.
And then the other area that people get puffy is in the back of the knees. So really watch that. And then the ankles is another area people get puffy. An area that people don't see that I'm not going to be showing you that people get puffy is right here as well. And it's, Dr. Dan Pompa calls it his poop, or it's his poof, his lymph poof. And it's really the best way to describe it. It's like a little poofy area just over your, well, women, it would be over your ovary area, but men in this, like these little pouches right here, if that's fluidy, if it's poofy, like poofy is the best way to describe it, Papa. I appreciate that. That's stagnancy. So, you don't want to have fluid anywhere in your body because lymph, while it does a lot of detox, it also helps with fluid balance. We didn't really talk about that and all the benefits of lymph, but that's one of them. In addition to helping your immune system, it helps with your bone growth. It helps in so many different ways because it circulates. It's part of your circulatory system, and it circulates your toxicants, yes, but your nutrients and your gases and your fats as well, and then balances the fluid. So if you look at your body and you have fluid in different areas and you're like, oh, that's a little puffy, it's probably not fat. It's probably lymph fluid that's stuck.
And that's the thing. And a lot of people think it's fat. And I tell them a lot, actually, like, I don't think that's fat. I think you're stagnant and you just need to flow. And so,
it's true. This is a lot of times people think is fat. They get little poofs here and it's not. Like you can see I'm a little poofier here on this side.